Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you're all well. Haven't been here for a while. So welcome to my live. I'm going to be talking about my epic journey from emotional mess to mastery and how I now help people to actually overcome their not enoughness, their self-loathing, their self-isolating because of their fear of their emotions, to now actually being able to overcome, express, put boundaries, express themselves clearly, and live the life that this allows them to have, right? So it's really powerful. Plus the fact that overcoming your emotional overwhelm and the avoidance, wanting to avoid your emotions, maintains chronic pain and dis-ease in your body. So it massively affects your emotional journey and massively affects your ability to heal as well. And this will all become apparent in this webinar, this live. So grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee or whatever you want, water, and we'll get started. So the moment I started to heal from 25 years of chronic pain and 18 different symptoms, including fibromyalgia or diagnosis of fibromyalgia, was the moment that I realized that I didn't love myself. In fact, I didn't like myself. Not only did I not love myself. So here I'm going to share my journey from self-hatred and loathing to feelings of not enoughness to moving into falling in love with myself, and how this completely changed my world. It completely changed my the pains and the symptoms that I had, and this ongoing compassion that I have and acceptance for my parts and all parts of myself, as well as the catalyst of the pain and suffering that had helped me get there, right? So I was horrible to myself, and you may be able to relate to this. I'm just going to check that I'm live also on YouTube channel. Just bear with me a second. Doesn't seem to be. Let me just check. I'm just upgrading, refreshing my page. Yeah, I'm live. Great. So, yes. So I was horrible to myself. You might be able to relate to this. I had no compassion. I spoke horribly to myself. I looked at myself in the mirror and, was disgusted by what I saw. I was chronically judging myself and chronically criticizing myself, blaming and shaming myself for constantly being not enough, right? Not feeling like a good enough mother when I became a mother, not a good enough wife, not a good enough daughter to my mother and my family, not a good enough friend, and not bright enough and intelligent enough, certainly not to be doing a PhD in the lab. And I was actually quite abusive to myself, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I never praised myself, right? I never gave myself I never gave myself kind words. I was always in this state of criticism and judgment, and not feeling like I was able to, I'm just going to get there we go, that I was not, I wasn't speaking too kindly to myself at all. I wasn't nice to myself. I certainly wasn't, giving myself praise or kind words whenever I needed them. And so I wasn't my best friend. I wasn't which now I am, and I wasn't my own cheerleader. So this constant putting myself down and trying to prove that I was enough and strong enough and clever enough, even after doing my master's and PhD in Greek in 2013. It was just ridiculous, right? It was never enough in my own eyes. And this, I had chronic pain for many, many years and chronic symptoms, like I said before, and I hadn't realized the connection between those two things. And so I'm going to try and show you and pave the way for you to maybe you resonate with this story, so you also understand that there is something that you can do, right? So for many years, I had these pains, these chronic debilitating pains. My body was showing me, right? Now I know this. My body was showing me, signaling to me my internal balance. My internal battle, right? There was a battle going on, right, between myself and the internal and external world. But basically, this self-hate and self-loathing that I had was showing up in my physical world with this chronic pain, in my mental world because I was certainly not happy, and I was very, very unbalanced, and in my emotional world because I had a lot of emotional turmoil inside. And so this constant self-attacking finally presented itself with an autoimmune condition, fibromyalgia, as the body attacks itself, because you're physically, mentally and emotionally, and talking to myself, attacking myself the whole time. It literally, I'll show you later, it literally it reflects in the physical world, right? So this physical, the arthritis in my hand, the early onset arthritis, and the fibromyalgia were literally just showing me that I was having this internal battle, right, inside. So it became very apparent in 2013 when I finished my PhD and when I was, finishing and defending my PhD. This was the massive flare-up that I had, and it actually affected me so dramatically I had to leave science, and I decided to go and live a more quiet, simple life, thinking that was actually going to, solve all the problems, because I was still looking at the external world as my as the problem, as the suffering that I was having, right? Nothing was lining up for me, right? So I left research and development, and I went into a more I had this dream of going into living in a small holding in the middle of Crete with my husband and live this self-sustainable lifestyle, slow down my nervous system, and try and hopefully, overcome this chronic pain that I had and chronic symptoms. And actually this dream that I had turned into a nightmare quite quickly, as I realized that I was still, criticizing, judging, and blaming myself constantly. So this was just, I became a mum. I had a daughter, and just after I became a mum, the pressure of the hormones and being a new mum and having all the extra stress, shaming and blaming and kind of perfectionism that I wanted to try and be the best, and having this not good enough mum feeling again, my body literally went into scream mode. It said no more. And I was at this point where I couldn't bend down and put my own socks on. I was in so much pain, chronic pain. I couldn't, let alone pick up the things around the house from my toddler at the time. And then the lines of onions that needed to be planted in our field, or the farming work that had to be done, was literally back breaking. And doing them in tears, right? Doing them, having to do all these chores literally with tears coming through my eyes because I was in so much pain. So like I said, I was patiently waiting for everything to line up, to everything to be okay on the outside world, so that my internal world would be better. But I didn't realize that it was that we live an inside-out world experience, right? We have to understand that. Now I know this, but the inside-out reality of our lives is very apparent when you are very sick. And so now I know that we are always experiencing our feeling, thinking loop, right? So that's the experience that comes and shows out in the external, in the physical, in the manifested realm, right? So just briefly, as a child, just to get some backstory, as a child, I never felt I fit in. This is why the enoughness, not enoughness, was so apparent in me. I had always been the too sensitive one. I was the, too emotional one. I was the too much. I was the Tigger in the family, from Winnie the Pooh, always bouncing around and being too exuberant. And I never had this sense of, I didn't develop the sense of being accepted as just who I was. My father was very cold emotionally and totally unemotionally available, basically. Bless his hot soul. He's now 60 something and he's finally learned emotional awareness, and I'm actually helping him. I've been helping him on this journey, which is amazing how it all kind of comes around, right? And my mother was the opposite, was very compassionate and fiery redhead, and had become emotionally suppressed and repressed because she was living in this, in this world where the emotions, like most of us, are not accepted. And so the depression, the depress in became very apparent. So I originally, I was from the UK. I left the UK because I felt this lack of love, this lack of acceptance. I didn't feel connected. I hadn't spoken to my father in 15 years, over the time of my childhood, because of the lack of self, this lack of the connection that I had with him. And I moved to warmer climates, partly because of my chronic pain, the chronic pain that I had, but also because I wanted to feel more expressive. And the Mediterranean, I moved to Crete, so the Mediterraneans are much more expressive in their ways, so I had a kind of rapport with them, and I felt like I fit in much better there. I had a series of relationships. I'm just telling you this to give you a background story of why and how this all kind of came up, became very apparent, the emotional withdrawing and emotional disharmony that I had inside me, creating this chronic pain that I had, right? So I chose my partners who basically with this in mind, that I wasn't able to express myself, excuse me, and emotionally allow and validate myself. And it became very apparent that I was choosing partners who were also were similar to my father, that we were very unaware emotionally and very emotionally available. And so I was choosing them because I didn't want to be the one who was I didn't want to be the one who was rejected, right? I wanted to be the one who was actually going to be rejecting, because I had abandonment issues, blah, 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 from first from my father, then from my mother, and finally from my older sister. So it was very, tied into all my emotional uncomfortableness of not feeling good enough and being the word of being rejected. So, but in fact, what I was doing was I was rejecting myself. I was rejecting my own emotions, and I was denying myself. I was denying my own ability to accept myself. I was denying my own ability to feel connected and affectionate to myself. In fact, I was denying my own love, right? So the human need, we all have this human need to be seen, heard, and safe, and feel safe. But if you're not able to do that to yourself, then you're certainly not going to be able to you're not going to be seeing that on the outside world, since we're living in this inside out world, right? So I was not seeing any love because I didn't give any love to myself, because I was not giving myself it first. I was expecting the external world to, invite me and validate me and allow me to express my emotions. But if I wasn't allowing myself to even express my own emotions, express my, validate and accept them as they were, then how am I meant to expect somebody else to do the same? And that was certainly very evident in my last partner. Isabella's my daughter's father, where we were drowning basically in our lack of emotional connection, because it was just evident that he was not aware emotionally, and certainly wasn't going to give me that validation until it came to the pinnacle, the final moment where he was always saying to me, not validating my emotions, and I was shout, trying to get them more and more heard. And it came to the last straw when he was combing my hair, and I said, "That hurts." And he said, "That doesn't hurt." And I just stood up and I just shouted very loudly, screamed at him, "This is the last time that you are going to tell me what I feel," right? So it was the moment that I took, basically, I stood up for my own feelings and my own experience with the utmost vigor that I had never had before, and everything started to shift. It was the moment that I really gave myself the acceptance of how I felt, the validation that I needed. And I realized that this was, an ongoing story that I hadn't actually done for so long. I was constantly chasing the need to fill this hole and feeling unsatisfied with what I am, who I am, and what I have. And in fact, this feeling of sense of lack came from within me. It came from within me while I was looking in the external world for fulfillment and validation. It was actually because I was not giving it to myself. So everything changed when this happened, right? When the shift happened, and I just started to stand up for my emotions. It was a terrifying experience. Believe me, my emotions were the icing on the cake of all my lack-based experience, my lack of worth, lack of fulfillment, lack of validation. And I was literally terrified of my next emotional explosion, right? I was literally terrified of when I was going to get this, have this outburst in the most inappropriate moments, because they were boiling up inside of me, right? So I was and then I would be feeling this constant cycles of regret and deep cycles of self-criticism afterwards, because why didn't I not hold my temper at my daughter, or why did I not say that slightly more lovingly to my partner, and I had so much judgment and so much guilt and so much shame, and this constant spiraling, right? That's just left me feeling completely emotionally isolated still. So it wasn't for a while that I really got to the point where I could understand that these emotions are just my powerhouse. I just hadn't found out how to actually use them yet. So I would actually have to self-isolate, because it was as a coping strategy, right? I couldn't cope with my emotions, the endless cycles of not validating my feelings, not feeling seen and heard and felt for who I was, my expression of these emotions. So they would just boil up, and then I would blurt them out, and I would abuse, or certainly, verbally abuse people that I mostly loved, and felt then completely embarrassed and shamed through that experience. And so I would avoid, right? And the cycles went on and on and on. And it was a very difficult time for me. It was a very difficult time for my partner and me. And I tried to get them out more and more often, but it just wasn't. It was an endless circle of this, what I just described, the outbursts, and then the avoidance, the wanting to avoid so that I wouldn't feel shame for myself and my emotions, right? And also the deep rage that I had was inside was the hardest to bear, right? We all have this belief, I think, that certainly in the Western cultures, that emotions are bad and strong emotions should be, suppressed, and that you're not a good girl if you are angry, for example, or these bad emotions are certainly not acceptable. And it was really, really, really evident that I was in rage. I had a lot of rage inside of me, and rage is a really strong word, but it's really evident, especially with people with chronic pain, to have rage, internal suppressed rage, right? So my vital energies were basically, in my innate power, healing power was completely blocked, because I was totally terrified of my emotional outbursts that would become uncontrollably like volcanoes coming out, especially to the people that I loved, in the most inappropriate places again, right? So this was causing my chronic pain, basically. And this, I didn't understand this at the time, but this was, came evident to me. And I'm going to tell you how this became evident to me. So maybe the step-by-step process will just allow you to understand also how this is affecting your health, your physical health, right? So one sunny winter's morning on the 2019 January, in the depths of my despair and feeling totally depressed, totally broken, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, and feeling completely alone, I took my daughter to the playground opposite my house, and to escape the painful back-breaking chores from the house and the farm, right? I discovered in my audio book that I just signed up for, the audio on Amazon, the audio Audible, it's called. I'd discovered a book inside. It was there. I hadn't bought it. It was completely by serendipity. And the book that I discovered in the library was Dr. Sarno's The Godfather of Mind-Body Connection. Amazing. The book was called The Divided Mind. And this book was a complete blessing. It was what I had been asking for. I'm not religious in any way, but I truly am now spiritual. And this was also part of the journey, the catalyst journey from pain to, this emotional awakening that I had. So I devoured this book, with relish, and I read myself on every single page. It described how chronic pain and the mind-body syndrome, or what he calls TMS, the tension myositis syndrome, are basically expressions of deeply suppressed emotion, right? So they're symptoms of the lack of expression of these emotions. So, and mostly rage, as I was saying before. So this is why I said, like, I could see myself on every page, because the rage that I had inside of me, it was finally giving me some kind of answer to this story, right? And I suddenly felt this deep, this feeling of hope that I could find that there was actually something that I could do for my, to heal from these 25 years of debilitating chronic pain flare-ups. And it was something that I could do personally. Just lost my camera. Just bear with me a second. Camera just overheated. Nope. Doesn't want to come back on again. Oh, there we go. So hopefully don't move too much. Okay, sorry about that. So, technical glitch. So this was the most empowering time of my life, actually, when I realized that this deep black hole that I felt that I was in, and this chronic pain was now about to catalyze me on this path to finding myself, finding my dharma, or my calling in this beautiful planet, and finally realizing the power that I had within to heal, right? And get myself out of this miserable mediocrity life that I had thought that I was in, right? So it was all amazing realization. But I still had a lot of journey to go through this experience, but I just relished this awakening moment that I could actually do something, that I had the power, that I had the key, basically, right? So after these initial realizations, I started putting in the work. I did massive amounts of soul searching, self-development courses with Mind Valley, one of the most amazing platforms that I have ever found for its, self-development courses, really top notch. I can put the link below. While searching for my purpose and my meaning in life, basically. But also, I didn't realize at the time that I was still avoiding my emotions, right? So I was putting in the work and the kind of mental work and the kind of, practices, but I was not actually sitting with my emotions yet at that time. So I still had endless cycles of emotional shit shows, excuse my French, and the shame that went with it, right? I loved learning. I was also listening to all sorts of audiobooks at the time. Thank God they're a lifesaver. I was taking my daughter and pushing my daughter around the village, sowing lines of potatoes or onions with audiobooks. I was really searching for the missing pieces and the missing puzzles to try and, get to this understand the mind-body connection and how it all works and make it all work. As an immunologist, doctor and PhD in immunology, I really, was very in the mental and less in the emotional. So I became, realized that my calling was the holistic life coach, and I became double certified. I invested my last amount of money in an entrepreneurship course called The Inner and Outer Game of Entrepreneurship with Eben Pagan and Anya Lala. And there I found, through the Inner Game coaching experience, I found the first soothing tools that I had ever experienced. So soothing tools are tools that soothe your emotions and your nervous system so that you can actually experience your emotions without massive overwhelm and avoidance behaviors, right? So this was the first time that I actually could sit down and feel my feelings. It was amazing. This was the first tools that I knew that I had ever experienced. These are all incredibly, these are, what's the word? Simple yet effective and incredibly well looked into, researched into tools to help you soothe your emotions and your nervous system. It was the first time that I was able to have my emotions rather than them having me for dinner, right? It was the first time that I was able to experience my emotions, my massive, okay, I started slow, right? So I finally felt these parts of me that I could experience for the first time, that I just started to now have the tools to deal with them. So I felt for the first time my rage. I felt, the feelings inside my body. I allowed them to move them bit by bit, bite by bite, piece by piece, right? It doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly, I started with the small emotions, right? The small triggers throughout the day, rather than the deep resentment or hate, self-hate or self-loathing, the resentment that I had towards my father and all these kind of things, right? From those experiences, right? So first I started with the small, and so that I could it was the first time that I realized that I was doing avoidance behaviors, right? The avoidance behavior is a very, very well built-in mechanism to protect. So it's not something that we can shame and blame, but it's an avoidance behavior mechanism to help us to avoid feeling our feelings. And actually, most of our life is guard around that experience of trying to avoid our feelings. And reaching for my favorite go-to avoidance behavior was reaching for my favorite chocolate, or going to smoke a joint, excuse me, weed, trying to numb myself from these experiences that I was having, right? So you can choose your, see what your avoidance behavior is, and once you know you're doing your avoidance behavior, then you can actually you can start to go to the emotion first and then go to the avoidance behavior, if that's the way that you want to go, right? But it was so liberating. It was the first time that I felt true freedom to express and feel my emotions piece by piece, self-soothing by self-soothing, right? And it was the first time that I started to be able to, it was the missing piece basically, that I hadn't had this ability to soothe self and find self-love. So the emotional outburst became less. I was able to now bring safety to my body while I felt my emotion, which is key. So because otherwise you just want to just get out, right? And that makes sense as well, right? So you just want to avoid, like I said. So once you bring safety into your nervous system while you feel these emotions, you can actually, and why I say that is that these tools bring safety into the nervous system, because when you're in a fight, flight, freeze response from the sympathetic nervous system, right, the four F's, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, actually, you just don't want to go there, right? You just want to get out of there as soon as possible, right? But when we can start to soothe, we can bring in the rest and digest and rejuvenate response, which of course has huge positive effects on our health, right? So by creating a sense of safety in the body, the emergency mode can be dropped, and which is what we normally have when we're experiencing our emotions. They're actually coded as unsafe and dangerous because of our cultural experience of emotions and the overwhelm that we feel, right? So my pain reduced, finally, my pain reduced, and I was able to start to realize the deep connection between emotions and pain. I was able to read I read more and more and more, and the amazing book from emotional was called Molecules of Emotion, the scientific background of that. And many more. I was really able to start to release all of this pressure, the depression inside, this ability I suddenly had the ability to actually soothe these emotions and not be overwhelmed by them. So I was totally hooked, actually. I read, like I said, all the Western and Eastern philosophies about emotions and how they actually are so vital, that they're the internal guidance system. I was looking at the physical and mental and spiritual components of emotional awareness intelligence. I became a bit of an emotional nerd. I found it fascinating. I finally was able to reconciliate the emotion, the yin and the yang from my mother and my father. I was able to actually experience the emotions rather than just feeling that they were just some kind of manipulation. Emotions, from the male point of view, male perspective, my father had this feeling, these beliefs about emotions, that they were just manipulative, right? And marry the yin and the yang of our emotions together. So that through this experience, I was able to actually bring about the polarization of these emotions. That we don't want to delve too deep, and we don't want to be sitting too long in the emotions, but we also want to feel them to heal them, right? So there's always, as our 3D reality is, we have this ability to we have to be able to see that there is always a polarity. There's always a yin and the yang. There's always the male and the female. So the male part of emotions is getting the awareness of what the emotions are about, so that we can move on. But the feminine is the staying with the emotions and feeling them, so that we can feel them to heal them, right? So there's two aspects of that. But I was totally hooked. I finally, after, like I said, all of this research and all of this looking into and all of this, discovering and reading about, listening to podcasts and courses and all sorts of things, was actually an emotional escape, right? So I finally, like I said, was able to sit down and courageously delve into all my internal world and deepen my emotional practices to understand better what my emotions were actually trying to tell me, and build my emotional awareness, build my emotional intelligence. I was able to understand finally what our emotions, where they're coming from, how they affect our body, and how it's so important to get through those experiences of those emotions so that we can come out the other side, catalyze our incredible journey of healing, an innate power that we all have for health, right? To heal our own self, our own body. And this is my mission now to the world, because it's such I've combined my immunology with my personal journey, with my experience, with the coaching experience and the coaching courses that I've done, the holistic life coaching courses that I've done, in order to really build this knowledge and bring it in a way that really helps people to heal emotionally, like physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? So the physical aspects, the mental aspects of the panic, the terror of not wanting to feel our emotions, and also, of course, the emotional soothing tools that really do bring us into an opportunity to, bring us to the ability to actually feel them and know that there's a wisdom behind our emotions, which I'm going to go into in a minute. So I now help people embrace their whole self and embrace all aspects of themselves, because this was the missing piece as well, that I just couldn't love myself not embracing all, right? You can't love the whole and then leave out the anger. You can't truly unconditionally love yourself if you are terrified of your rage, right? So that's where the whole, and healing is actually from the word whole, right, comes from, is that we actually have to embrace this whole self with all those parts and heal them, feel them, and bring love and compassion, acceptance fully to these aspects of ourselves, so that they can heal, and then they move and release and can be let go of, right? And ultimately bringing this love, acceptance into your internal world, so that you can create and experience it on the external world and feel the love and peace that is present in the world when you are present with your emotions and your internal state and internal world, right? So that's my kind of like summary of the steps that I took, and also the journey that I experienced. Like I said, it was the most terrifying experience, but the most liberating and freeing, because now I can, in any situation, I can feel, and I still get emotionally hijacked, right? I still get overwhelmed with my emotions, but I know how I now have a toolbox which I can use to actually bring in, sometimes when you're totally dysregulated, and it's all, the first thing that I have to do is the ABCs, which is, I did a webinar about this, A is awareness, B is breathe, and C is a choice, having a choice about what you're going to do from that moment on. So that sometimes we just need to just do that, right? But having a toolbox, I have all sorts of tools that I use regularly, daily, and for all the little triggers, sometimes the little ones, sometimes the bigger ones. I used to be unable to be online or visible, and I'm using those tools for my business all the time, because there's lots of strong emotions that come up when you're doing a Facebook Live, or when you're doing webinars or whatever. So I was terrified to be visible and seen, because I felt it was not enough, right? So there was never, and so I'm not going to go into that now, but I'm just going to tell you that they've been very, very powerful, not only for my healing journey, but also for my general life. In my parenting, for example, I used the soothing tools, and now my 6-year-old, I'm teaching them to her, so she can have these skills that we should have been taught at school, basically, about emotional awareness and about emotional intelligence, right? That's so key. And I'm going to show you now, I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons why emotions matter and why we must master them, right? The 5 important keys to this, the 5 reasons, right? Because why are we doing this otherwise, right? And the reasons are But emotions contain deep wisdom. They're not just some annoying, bloody well, get out of my life kind of experience. They are really trying to tell us something. They are, in fact, the self, and this is from the kind of more Eastern philosophies, the self-correction mechanism of our life, right? Of our human experience, right? If we say that we are, and I truly believe this, that we are, infinite beings of light and love, having a human experience. The emotions are, the characteristics of the human experience, but they are the guidance system, the internal guidance system back to wholeness and back to the self-love, openness, and connection to self, to others, and beyond, right? Through your emotional experience. So that changes and totally reframes your emotion now, because you can now, obviously you need a little bit more deeper wisdom, deeper understanding about this, but this was a real revelation for me. It was not just my emotions are just some pesky thing that I have to get over and feel. It's really that they have deep wisdom that are really important for this self-correction mechanism that life has for us. So it's a gift, right? And it's not something to be it's not just the pesky emotions, right? So that's number one. The second one is that they are connection. They are the true emotions, are the true connection between the mind and the body. So if we want to understand mind and body, we have to start to understand our emotions. What I mean by this is that our body is the dashboard of the mind. The mind doesn't have a system to tell you what it's thinking. Most of the time we're so overrun by our thinking that we don't even, unless you're mindful constantly all the time, you don't know what you're thinking. So the emotions signal to the body, through the body, that we're feeling something, right? Because we're constantly living our thinking, feeling state, right? We're living through them. So that it shows us now our thinking, feeling state at any one moment of time, our emotions being the kind of signpost, right? We're either going up towards in a spiraling motion upwards towards happiness, bliss, and gratitude, or we're going down into shame, blame, criticism, fear, anger, all the negative or low vibrational emotions. Again, I've done an ABC. I did my webinar last week. Go and check that out. That will be help to explain David Hawkins' work on consciousness and emotions, and how important that is from a vibrational level. So we can it's giving us, the thoughts are the rudder of the boat. Thoughts direct us in the direction that we want to go. If we want to, the law of attraction, law of resonance, all of these things, and this is, happening whether you like it or not. Most of the time we manifest things that we don't want because we're actually thinking about them. So that the thoughts that we have are the rudder of the boat, right? The rudder, the thing that gives the boat direction, and our emotions are the rocket fuel to make it go there, right? To make it shoot, or the cannon, firing the cannon, and the emotions are the ball, the cannonball, right? So you can have thoughts, lots of thoughts, and you don't have to have any. They don't manifest anything unless you have the emotion behind it. So the emotion is the rocket fuel for our life, right? For our life experience, what we want, or what we deliberately manifest with a big M, or we manifest through lack of understanding, right? So, and so number 3 is that emotional mastery is at the heart of self-love and authentic expression. You cannot love yourself, and you cannot express yourself fully, authentically, and truly to yourself, and to not only to yourself, but to, if we're all unique expression of God, or I don't like the word God, of the universe, of the cosmos, then we are not, if we're not aligned with our own expression, then we're not aligned with our life, right? We're not aligned with life in general. And so it's our emotions, and the mastery of our emotions is at the heart of self-love and authentic expression, which is the connection with oneness, passion, purpose, and meaning of life, right? So it's massively integrated. You can't have one without the other. It's at the heart of self-love and authentic expression. Emotions, number 4, emotions are the powerhouse of our vital energies and our vital innate health and well-being. So this is really powerful as well, that we cannot again have emotions and that they are the powerhouse, they are the vital energies. And what I mean by this is the emotions all have frequencies. They are, like I said, they have high vibration or lower vibrations depending on what we're feeling. These expand. It's been shown now and monitored and calibrated into the, I think it's about 1 meter into the room. We are expanding these energies and frequencies. It's the when we spend a lot of our time suppressing the emotions that we don't want to feel, right? So they are the vital energies. They get stuck in the suppression of low vibrational emotions. So what I mean by that, so for example, rage, right, or anger, what we do is we spend a lot of time not trying to experience or feel or express our anger. But by doing that, all that amount of energy to keep the suppression of your anger and rigid and this kind of like robotic, fear, all these things to keep it pressed down and in, is taking our vital energies away. And those vital energies are what we need for our innate healing process to be kick in and start to heal, right? So it's taking our vital energies away if we're not able to express our emotions being the powerhouse of our vital energies, right? I said touch briefly on that as the next point, which is that emotions are the key to unlocking our innate health and manifesting what we want rather than what we don't want. So this, for example, I had terrible fear of my symptoms going on and on and on forever and ever and never getting healthy. And that was actually the fear and the thought. So the thought was I'm going to be sick forever. And the fear that I felt was creating that, was firing the thought in the direction that I didn't want to go, and that was perpetuating the chronic cycles of pain. And this is what I do a lot of work with my one-on-one clients on this aspect, because it's such an powerful and important point. When we start to realize that our emotions are our internal correction system, that they are the guidance system back to the feeling of wholeness, back to the feeling of oneness, which is what we ultimately are in this fabric of the universe, right? A part of Godical, I like to call it, in this fabric of the universe, of the field of the universe. Then we can really start to embrace them and not be so fearful of them anymore, right? And the last part is that if we don't have emotional mastery and we don't understand and can feel our emotions, then we absolutely are not free, right? We are going to only be at the mercy of others and mercy of other people's fear mongering or fear campaigning. The propaganda behind. I mean, everything is sold to us, and we buy everything on emotions. So if we're sold to, and everything is bought with with emotion, right? It's not through logic, it's through emotions. So if we are the victim of everybody else's emotions, like the collective emotion, for example, right now it's the collective emotion of fear and shame, right? Then we are going to be at the mercy of that, and we're only going to have, we're not going to ever be free. We're not going to ever feel that we can have our life on our terms, on our own terms, right? So that is just the kind of 5, first of all, my epic story, how I became the emotional mess that I was in and how I became a master of my emotions. And again, this is by no means to, this is no mean an endless journey. It's still going on. It's a journey that I absolutely relish. I think this is such an important part of our life. And I told you the 5 reasons why emotions matter and why we need to master them. And of course, I'm not going to leave you there, because this is the whole point. I really want you to understand that there is help out there, right? That there's ways to be supported, and I've now created, I'm really excited to show you and invite you to this beautiful live group coaching program, which is Mastering Your Emotions Made Easy to Soothe Your Mind, Body, for a healthier, happier life, right? And this is a really, really, excuse me, I have not seen any other group that's like this. Of course, I do this one-on-one as well, so but it's more of an investment. So if you're interested in this group, healing emotions, mastering your emotions, with learning a toolbox of tools, like soothing tools that help you heal, help you feel your emotions without overwhelm, then this is absolutely for you, right? It's for people who feel that they're at the mercy of their emotions, that they're terrified of the next panic attack or the next rage outburst that I had, right? That are really wanting to start to live the freedom of the emotional mastery, right? The freedom of being able to feel these emotions and letting them go. So this is for people who are, feeling emotionally on an emotional roller coaster ride on a constant basis. This program is for people who feel that they're still judging themselves massively and harshly and criticizing themselves, shaming themselves for the bad and unpleasant emotions that they may be experiencing, for people who have get emotionally hijacked very easily and feel imprisoned in these loops that I was talking about, the loops of not expressing and then explosively expressing, and the shit show that goes with that, and then the feelings of shame and guilt and regret that come with that, and force us into avoidance behaviors or even withdrawals from friends, from family, which is also something that I had, right? So we can actually really overcome those, feel free, feel expansive in our emotions, feel that we are actually be able to feel them without overwhelm. So we're no longer have to feel frozen by them. We don't have to feel numb by them anymore, right? We can actually bring in these tools and to soothe, so we can actually feel them and heal them. It's also people, yes, like I said, who are feeling numb, right? Who are feeling unable to express. Maybe they just they have chronic pain. Maybe they have symptoms of these stress-related disorders, mind-body syndrome or TMS, but they're unable to actually, they can't feel, they don't see themselves as being rageful, or they can't express their emotions. They are so disconnected from their emotions because of a mechanism, a behavioral safety mechanism that the body has created to feel connected to people, right? Because connection is key to life as well, right? And also for people who, for example, might have understood the importance of emotions in resonance, in the law of attraction. They might have already started to understand all this, but they just can't get those the habit to build these to build this into your life. And so I really invite you all to this beautiful community that I'm creating, that I've started now. The early bird offer is only available until tomorrow, so please, I'll get the details to you underneath below, but it's very affordable for you right now, because it's really important for me to feel like I'm serving the planet right now in my service to others path through this experience of chronic pain. I became very aware of my dharma. I'm very aware of my calling. I'm very aware of my meaning and purpose and passion on this planet, because I have, from the shit show, from the mess, to, you know, be able to master and help other people do, so that we can raise the vibrations on this planet. This is really, really key for me. This is one of my highest values, my highest, you know, ways to serve in this on this beautiful planet. So if you're interested, it's available, like I said, the early bird until tomorrow, the 11th of November at 11 o'clock EET, which is Eastern European time, or the equivalent. So for learning in community about these tools, so it'll be 90 minutes live every week, so that we have accountability. You'll be given an allocation accountability buddy to help you. We'll also be in this beautiful family, you know, tribe, to, you know, practice these soothing tools. I'll give you a soothing tool a week, so it's actually going to be 10 soothing tools. But within that time, we get to practice them. We get to, and I'll say why we need it. We can start off with 1 or 2, and we can then practice them, and then we move on, right? So that we have a toolbox. You have soothing tools that really, really, for all important moments of your life, you can have a tool that brings in soothing, and some brings in, it helps you overcome any disease. I don't like the word disease, it's dis-ease in the body, and kickstart your healing journey, and also bring in, like I said, ability to sit and feel your triggers so that you can clear them. There's also beautiful tools to catalyze your triggers, so that you can actually understand why, you know, why we're having these triggers. It's past experiences coming to the light of consciousness, right? So it's really a powerful journey for people who are really in need from the physical, but also from the mental, from the physical aspects, in the sense that they have pain, they have chronic pain, they have chronic symptoms, but also for people who have mental, like panic attacks and stress-related disorders, anxiety, and unable to cope, right, in this our challenging and triggering lifestyle that we lead. So together we will create a better world. This is really, really very, very powerful, you know, important for me, that we're starting to raise our vibration, take responsibility for our feelings, first of all, that we can actually now shift them, move into this beautiful inside out revolution. This is one of my favorite books by Michael Neal. I read it very often, because this inside out revolution, this inside out world that we live in, is really, the heart of this is emotion, right? The heart of this is how we can, whether or not we can experience our emotions or not, right? Whether or not we can actually allow these emotions to guide us in the way that we want, or to guide us or direct us in the way that we don't want. Like I said, they are the thoughts that we have are the rudder for the boat, for the vessel of the body, right? Sailing on our sailing the boat on the way of life, right? But the emotions are the power, the fuel that drive us to move that boat forward. So with that, I'm going to love you and leave you, and hopefully you'll join me. I'll put it in the program starting. The program details will be put them now in the chat box. I think you can see them now. Please join me, and just saw your note from Michael Murray. I didn't see that before. So I can DM you there, Michael Murray, so I can help you. But please, more specifically, but But yeah, go onto the site, have a look, see what if it resonates with you. I told you who's it for. I told you it's going to be an early bird price until tomorrow. So please go and jump on there. It's building this community. It's going to be a live 90 minutes every single week, so that we can really dive deep. We can practice these tools and have accountability buddies to actually build these techniques and tools. And again, it's not only about tools, it's actually about reframes and resets in our body, personally practicing them, embodying them, so that we can make the shifts in throughout the sessions, but also in at home when we're alone, and have a powerful community to do that with. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll see you on the inside. If you decide to join me, I'll be very, very happy and very excited to support you on this beautiful journey, catalyzing your growth through your hormones and releasing any chronic pain, and actually ultimately fall in love with yourself in the process. So I love you and leave you, and see you again soon.